Hey everyone, welcome to Jacko. Today I want to argue that Adventure Time is the saddest cartoon ever made. And I know that sounds crazy. You hear Adventure Time and you think of a kid in a bear hat punching ice wizards with his stretchy dog. You think of candy people and silly voices and random humor. But underneath all of that, this show told some of the most heartbreaking stories ever put on television. Stories about a man who recorded himself losing his mind on videotape. About a little girl who watched her father figure forget she existed. About a kid who found his dad and realized his dad never wanted him. About a woman who erased herself from existence just to save the man she loved. Adventure Time was a show about loss, about love, and about what happens when the world takes everything from you and you have to figure out how to keep going anyway. So turn the lights down, get comfortable, and let me take you back to the land of Ooh. Because the first story starts with a VHS tape, a man named Simon Petrikov, and a crown he never should have put on. But before we begin, I'd just like to kindly ask you all to subscribe. It's completely free, and it really helps us improve the videos for this wonderful community we've managed to build. Anyway, that's enough. Let's begin. The tape that changed everything. Simon Petrikov's video diary. For 3 whole seasons, the Ice King was a joke. And that was kind of the point. He was the guy who showed up every few episodes to kidnap a princess, get beaten up by Finn and Jake, and then go home to his penguins in the Ice Kingdom like nothing happened. He was loud. He was weird. He was annoying. He talked to his penguins like they were people. He wrote bad fan fiction. He threw tantrums when things did not go his way. And every single time he showed up on screen, the audience knew exactly what was about to happen. He would do something stupid, Finn and Jake would stop him, and life in the land of Ooh would go back to normal. That was the deal with the Ice King. He was not scary, he was not threatening. He was just this sad, strange old man who lived alone in a frozen castle and could not figure out why nobody wanted to be around him. For 3 seasons, the show let us laugh at him. It let us roll our eyes at him. It let us see him as nothing more than a running gag, a cartoon villain with no depth and no real reason to care about him beyond the fact that he kept showing up. And then one episode came along and changed everything. Not just about the Ice King, but about the entire show. That episode was Holly Jolly Secrets Part 2 from Season 3 of Adventure Time. And it is one of the most important episodes in the history of the series, because it took a character that most people had written off as comic relief and turned him into one of the most tragic figures in all of animation. The setup for this episode is actually pretty simple. Jake had found a suitcase full of old VHS tapes at the dump a while back and buried them without even looking at what was inside. When he and Finn dig them up, they realize the tapes belong to the Ice King. Naturally, they get excited. These must be the Ice King's darkest secrets, right? His master plans, his evil schemes, the stuff he has been hiding from everyone. So they pop the first tape into BMO and start watching. And what they find is not evil at all. It is just sad. The first tape is the Ice King rambling about his innermost secrets before Gunter the Penguin interrupts him. Then he puts on a little play where Gunter plays the Ice King and the Ice King plays Princess Bubblegum. The second tape is a penguin dance party. The third tape is the Ice King talking about his feelings and then working out. Finn fast forwards through most of it. The fourth tape is just the Ice King sitting in a corner, crying. The fifth tape is the Ice King pretending to be a news reporter and using a kidnapped Wildberry princess as his on-screen guest. The sixth tape is the Ice King wearing a black wig pretending to be Marceline and singing the Fry song from the episode It Came from the Nightosphere. So at this point, Finn and Jake are pretty much over it. The tapes are not evil. They are not secret. They are just the Ice King being the Ice King. Boring, lonely, weird stuff that nobody asked to see. BMO even tries to find a hidden code in the tapes, and the best it comes up with is a picture of Gunter. Meanwhile, the Ice King is outside the tree fort, losing his mind trying to get the tapes back. He covers the entire house in snow. He builds an army of snowmen. He is clearly desperate to keep whatever is on those tapes from being seen. And that desperation is what keeps Finn and Jake watching. Because if the Ice King is this afraid of someone seeing these tapes, then there has to be something on them worth finding. And then they get to the last tape. And the entire tone of the episode changes. The camera is different. The setting is different. The voice is different. Instead of the Ice King sitting in his frozen castle being weird, the screen shows a man, a normal-looking man, sitting in what looks like a regular room with normal furniture and normal lighting. In the background, you can see buildings through a window. Modern-looking buildings. An airplane flies overhead. This is not the Land of Oo. This is the world before the Mushroom War. This is the world before everything fell apart. And the man on the screen introduces himself. His name is Simon Petrikov. He speaks calmly, clearly, like a teacher or a professor, which makes sense because he was an antiquarian. That means he was someone who studied and collected ancient and rare items for a living. He explains that he never really believed in anything supernatural. He just found old things interesting. But then everything changed when he came across one very specific item. Simon explains that he purchased a strange crown from an old dock worker in northern Scandinavia. He brought it home to show his fiancée, a woman named Betty. He put the crown on his head as a joke, just for a laugh, just to be silly with the person he loved. And that was the moment his life ended. Not right away, not all at once, but that was the beginning. Simon says that when he put the crown on, he started seeing things, visions, things that were not there. He fought them, shouted at them, before realizing the visions were coming from the crown itself. When he finally pulled the crown off his head, he had no memory of what he had done while wearing it. All he knew was that Betty was standing there, looking at him with what he described as contempt. That look, that single look from the woman he loved, was the first thing the crown took from him. Because whatever he did while wearing it, whatever Betty saw, it was enough to make her leave. And she did. As the tape keeps rolling, Simon keeps recording. And this is where the episode stops being sad and starts becoming something much heavier, because you can see it happening in real time. With each new entry, Simon looks a little less like himself. His skin starts turning blue. His nose starts growing longer and pointer. His hair begins changing from brown to white. A beard starts creeping across his face. He is not becoming the Ice King overnight. It is slow. It is gradual. And you can hear it in his voice that he knows exactly what is happening to him. He knows he is losing himself. He knows the crown is eating away at his mind, piece by piece, day by day. And the worst part is that he cannot stop it. He talks about trying to find a way out. He calls it a labyrinth in his brain. He says the magic of the crown is keeping him alive, but it is also making him lose his grip on who he is. And in his final words on the tape, Simon begs. He does not demand anything. He does not threaten anyone. He just begs. He asks whoever is watching to please watch over him until he can find a way to fix this, until he can get his mind back, until he can be himself again. And then he says it. The line that reframes everything the audience has ever known about the Ice King. He says, "And then maybe Betty, my princess, maybe you will love me again. Please love me again, Betty. My princess." Those two words carry the weight of the entire series on their backs, because for 3 seasons, the Ice King has been kidnapping princesses. Every princess in Oo. Over and over again. And everyone just thought he was creepy. Everyone thought it was just his thing, his weird obsession, his villain gimmick. But now you understand. He is not kidnapping princesses because he is evil. He is kidnapping princesses because the last thing his dying mind held on to was the memory of losing his princess. Betty. The love of his life, the woman who left because the crown turned him into something she could not recognize. His broken brain took that one word, princess, and twisted it into the only thing he could still act on. He does not even know why he does it anymore. He does not remember Betty. He does not remember being Simon. The crown took all of that from him 1,000 years ago. All that is left is this strange, sad pull toward princesses that he cannot explain and everyone else sees as a joke. And here is where the episode really gets you. After the tape ends, Finn and Jake are sitting there in silence. They have just watched a man lose his entire identity on camera. They have just learned that the annoying, goofy villain they have been beating up for 3 years used to be a kind, normal person who loved someone and lost everything. And then the Ice King, who has finally gotten into the tree fort, says the most heartbreaking thing possible. He says, "Now you know my secret. You know that I used to wear glasses." That is what he thinks his secret is. Not the crown, not Betty, not the fact that he used to be human. He is embarrassed that he used to wear glasses, because he does not remember any of it. The tapes could play right in front of his face and they would mean nothing to him. Simon Petrikov is gone. The crown ate him alive. And the Ice King does not even know there is anything to mourn. Finn and Jake do not say anything about what they saw. They do not try to explain it to him. They just hand him the tapes back. Finn says, "These belong to you." And the Ice King, completely oblivious, lights up like a little kid and says, "You're giving me a gift? But it's not even my birthday." He does not recognize his own voice on those tapes. He does not recognize his own face. He does not recognize his own story. And that is the most painful part of the entire episode. The Ice King will never know what he lost because the thing that took it from him also took his ability to understand that he lost it. After this episode aired, the Ice King was never just a joke again, not to the audience and not to Finn and Jake. Every time he showed up after Holly Jolly Secrets, there was this weight behind every silly thing he did, every princess he kidnapped, every lonely night in his castle, every time he talked to Gunter like Gunter was the only friend he had. It all meant something different now, because the audience knew the truth. Underneath all of the ice and all of the crazy behavior, there was a man in there, a good man. A man who begged for help on a VHS tape 1,000 years ago, and nobody came. The show never treated the Ice King the same after this, and neither could the people watching. Holly Jolly Secrets did not just reveal a backstory, it rewired the entire emotional core of Adventure Time. It taught the audience that the characters they think they understand might be carrying pain they cannot even begin to imagine. And it did all of that in a 2-part Christmas episode that starts with a penguin dance party. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the VHS tapes were only the beginning. Simon's story did not end with the recording, because somewhere out in the land of Ooh, there was someone who already knew the truth about who the Ice King used to be. Someone who had been carrying that pain in silence for hundreds of years. And her name was Marceline. Section 2. Please forgive me for whatever I do when I don't remember you. I remember you. At the end of Holly Jolly Secrets, the audience learned the truth about who the Ice King used to be. But there was a question that episode never answered. If Simon Petrikov lived through the Mushroom War, if he wandered the ruins of the old world as the crown slowly ate his mind, was he alone? Did anyone else know who he was before the crown took everything? Did anyone out there remember Simon when Simon could no longer remember himself? The answer came 1 season later, in Season 4, Episode 25, an episode called I Remember You. And the person who remembered was the last person most fans expected. It was Marceline, the Vampire Queen. And the story of what she and Simon shared, and what the crown destroyed between them, is one of the most heartbreaking things Adventure Time ever put on screen. The episode starts simply enough. The Ice King shows up at Marceline's house uninvited, which is pretty normal for him. He does this kind of thing all the time. He just appears at people's homes because he is lonely and has no real understanding of boundaries. But this time, he is not there to cause trouble or kidnap anyone. He wants Marceline to help him write a song. He has this idea that if he can write the perfect song, people will finally like him. Maybe he will finally make a friend. Maybe he will finally stop being so alone. And he heard somewhere that having a rough past makes for good music, so he figures his tortured past might be useful for something. The thing is, he does not actually know what his tortured past is. He just has this vague feeling that something happened to him a long time ago, something painful, but he cannot put it into words because the crown erased all of it. He is walking around with the emotional weight of 1,000 years of loss, and he has no idea where that weight is coming from. Marceline does not want him there. She tells him to leave. She is short with him, frustrated, almost angry from the moment he walks in, and on the surface it just looks like Marceline being her usual tough self, not wanting to deal with the Ice King's nonsense. But the audience is about to learn that her frustration is not about annoyance, it is about pain, deep, old, personal pain that she has been carrying in silence for centuries. Because Marceline knows exactly who the Ice King used to be. She has always known. And being around him, watching him stumble through life with no memory of the person he was, is something she can barely stand. As the Ice King rummages around Marceline's house looking for inspiration, he pulls out a scrapbook. Inside the scrapbook are pages and loose papers from a very long time ago. Among them is a photograph of a little girl. That little girl is Marceline, and on the back of the photo, written in old, shaky handwriting, is a message. A message that was written by Simon Petrikov, addressed directly to Marceline, during the time when the crown was still in the process of taking his mind. Marceline sees the note and freezes. She knows what it is. She has probably known about it for a long time, or at the very least suspected it existed. But the Ice King does not know what it is at all. He looks at the writing on the back and his eyes light up. He thinks he has found song lyrics. He thinks this old emotional letter from a dying man's fading mind is just material he can turn into music. And that is the moment the episode shifts from being about a silly visit into something completely different. Marceline tries to make him understand. She pulls out a newspaper clipping from Simon's past, showing a photo of him when he was still human. She holds it up to the Ice King's face and asks him if he recognizes the man in the picture. He does not. She tells him that the man in the photo is him. He does not understand. She is getting more and more upset, more and more desperate, trying to break through the wall that the crown built inside his head. And then it happens. In a moment of raw, uncontrolled frustration, Marceline snaps. She shouts at him, and she does not call him Ice King. She calls him Simon. This is the first time in the entire series that the audience hears someone call the Ice King by his real name to his face. And the way Marceline says it, the anger and the hurt and the exhaustion in her voice, tells you everything you need to know. This is not just some vampire who happens to know a piece of history. This is someone who loved Simon Petrikov, someone who grew up with him, someone who watched him disappear piece by piece until there was nothing left but this strange blue man who wanders around kidnapping princesses and talking to penguins. But even after she says his name, even after she practically screams it at him, the Ice King does not remember. He cannot. The crown will not let him. He just stares at her, confused, and then goes right back to trying to turn the note into a song. And that is the cruelest part. It is not that the Ice King chooses to forget. It is not that he does not care. It is that the thing living inside his crown physically will not allow him to access those memories. The door is not locked. It is gone. The hallway that led to it is gone. The building that the hallway was in is gone. There is nothing left for Marceline to reach. She could show him 1,000 photographs. She could play him 1,000 recordings of his own voice. And he would smile, nod, and ask her what she wants for lunch. So Marceline gives up trying to make him remember, and instead she picks up the note that Simon wrote all those years ago. The note that the Ice King thinks is a song, and she starts to read it. And as she reads it, you realize what this note actually is. It is not just a letter. It is a goodbye, written by a man who knew he was about to lose everything. The words were written by Simon during the time after the Mushroom War, when he was still partly himself, still fighting the crown's grip on his mind, still able to think clearly enough to put a pen to paper and say the things he needed to say before it was too late. And the things he says in that note are devastating. Simon wrote to Marceline about being in the wreckage of the world with her. He wrote about how confusing it must be for a little girl to be surrounded by nothing but ruins and danger. He wrote about knowing that she was going to need him, that she depended on him, that he was the only person she had. And then he wrote the part that breaks you. He told her that he was losing himself, that the magic of the crown was keeping him alive, but it was also making him go crazy, that he needed to save her, but he did not know who was going to save him. And then he asked her to forgive him, not for something specific, for everything. For whatever he might do in the future, when the crown finally wins and he no longer knows who she is, or who he is, or why any of it mattered. The Ice King hears these words and starts getting excited. He thinks they are great lyrics. He grabs a set of drums and starts playing along, completely unaware that the words coming out of Marceline's mouth are a dying man's last message to the child he was trying to protect. Marceline is reading the note out loud, tears streaming down her face, voice breaking, and the Ice King is happily banging away on drums like they are having a jam session. Two people in the same room sharing the same moment, and they could not be further apart. One of them is drowning in grief. The other one is having the time of his life, and neither of them can reach the other. That is what the crown does. It does not just take memories, it takes the ability to understand why those memories mattered. It puts a wall between people that no amount of love or patience or screaming can break through. While Marceline sings the words from Simon's note, the episode cuts to a flashback. And this flashback is the first time the show ever directly showed the aftermath of the Mushroom War in a personal, emotional way. Not as background details or hints in the scenery, but as a real moment between real characters. The flashback shows a destroyed city. Buildings are crumbling. The sky is gray and heavy. Everything is broken. And standing in the middle of all of it is a little girl. She is tiny. She is alone. And she is crying. That little girl is Marceline. She could not have been more than a toddler based on how small she looked. There is nobody else around. No parents, no other survivors. Just a child, standing in the ruins of everything, with tears running down her face and no one coming to help. And then, from a distance, someone sees her. A man. He is already starting to change. His skin is already starting to turn blue. His features are already shifting. But he is still Simon. Still enough of Simon to see a crying child and feel something. Still enough of Simon to run toward her instead of away. He finds a stuffed bear in the ruins of what appears to be a destroyed toy store. He picks it up, kneels down next to Marceline, and wipes the tears off her face. He hands her the stuffed bear, and Marceline stops crying. She looks up at him, holds the bear tight, and for the first time in what was probably a very long time, she is not alone anymore. That stuffed bear would become Hambo, the most important possession Marceline would ever own. Not because it was special on its own, but because it was the last gift she ever received from Simon while he was still Simon. It was proof that somebody had loved her in the worst moment of her life, and she carried it with her for centuries. Outside Marceline's house, Finn and Jake are watching through the window. They have no idea what is going on. They can hear the music. They can see Marceline crying and the Ice King playing drums, but they do not have the context to understand any of it. They do not know about Simon. They do not know about the Mushroom War. They do not know about the little girl and the stuffed bear. All they see is something confusing and emotional happening between two people whose connection they never knew existed. And that is part of what makes this episode so powerful. It does not explain everything. It does not hold your hand. It drops you into the middle of a grief that is 1,000 years old and asks you to feel it without fully understanding it. The answers come later in future episodes, but the emotion hits you right here, right now, in the space between a crying vampire and an oblivious old man who used to be her whole world. After this episode aired, Adventure Time was never the same. Not because the show changed its format or its tone, but because the audience now understood something fundamental about the world of Ooo. The silly, colorful, candy-covered land that Finn and Jake run around in is built on top of a tragedy. The Mushroom War did not just destroy buildings and countries. It destroyed families. It destroyed relationships. It turned good people into broken shells of who they used to be. And the people who survived, the people like Marceline, are still carrying that damage with them every single day. I Remember You was the episode that made people realize Adventure Time was not just a funny cartoon with weird characters. It was a show about loss. About what happens to love when the person you love forgets you exist. About what it means to watch someone you care about slip away, one piece at a time, until there is nothing left but a stranger wearing their face. The Ice King went home that night. He probably forgot about the whole visit by the next morning. He probably woke up, talked to Gunter, ate some ice cream, and went about his day like nothing happened. But Marceline did not forget. Marceline never gets to forget. That is her burden. She remembers everything. She remembers Simon's face. She remembers his voice. She remembers the way he used to act out episodes of old TV shows just to make her laugh. She remembers the day he stopped recognizing her. And she remembers the stuffed bear he pulled from the wreckage of a toy store in a dead city 1,000 years ago. She remembers all of it. And the person she wants to share those memories with is sitting right in front of her, smiling, happy, and completely empty. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But I Remember You only showed us one moment from Simon and Marceline's time together. One flashback. One glimpse of a little girl and a man with a changing face. It did not show us what their life actually looked like in those early days after the war. It did not show us how Simon took care of her, what he did to keep her alive, or how far he was willing to go before the crown finally pulled him under for good. That story came later, and when it did, it showed us something even more painful. The exact moment Simon Petrikov stopped being Simon Petrikov. Section 3. Chicken Soup in the Apocalypse. Simon and Marcy. I Remember You showed us the beginning. A little girl crying in the ruins of a city. A man kneeling beside her, handing her a stuffed bear, wiping the tears off her face. But that moment was just a snapshot, a single frame from a much longer story. It told us that Simon found Marceline after the Mushroom War. It told us that he cared about her. But it did not tell us what happened next. It did not show us what their daily life looked like in those early years, when the world had ended and the two of them had nothing but each other. That story came in Season 5, Episode 14, an episode called Simon and Marcy. And it is the episode where Adventure Time showed us exactly what Simon Petrikov was willing to sacrifice to keep one little girl alive. The episode opens in the present day. Marceline, Finn, Jake, and the Ice King are at Marceline's house playing basketball. This is after the events of I Remember You, so Marceline has started letting the Ice King come around again. She has accepted that Simon is gone, and that this strange, forgetful old man is the closest thing she will ever have to getting him back. The Ice King does not know any of this, of course. He is just happy someone invited him to hang out. When Finn and Jake ask Marceline how she even knows the Ice King, she decides to tell them the story. The real story. Not just the flashback from I Remember You, but the full picture of what her life with Simon was like 996 years ago in the aftermath of the Mushroom War. The episode then flashes back nearly 1,000 years. Marceline is about 7 years old now. She is older than she was in the I Remember You flashback, where she was still a toddler. Her clothes are a little more worn, a little more torn. She and Simon have been surviving together for a while at this point. They have a small campsite, a fire, and not much else. Simon has managed to freeze a deer in ice using his growing ice powers, and he is cooking it over the fire for the two of them. It is not comfortable. It is not safe. But they are alive, and they are together, and for now, that is enough. One of the first things the episode does is show you who Simon is as a person when the crown is not messing with his head. And the answer is that he is kind. He is dorky. He is trying so hard. There's a moment early in the episode where Simon tries to cheer Marceline up by acting out an episode of the old TV show Cheers for her. He finds a broken television set, stands behind it, and performs the show through the shattered screen like it is a stage. He does the voices. He does the characters. He puts everything he has into this goofy little performance just to make a sick, tired little girl smile. And it works. Marceline laughs. She even plays along. When Simon is done talking, she taps an old soda can and says, "Mute." And Simon mouths his words silently, like someone actually hit the mute button on a remote. It is such a small, silly moment, but it tells you everything about who this man is. He is not a warrior. He is not a hero in the traditional sense. He is just a regular person who loves this child and is doing everything he can think of to make her life a little less terrible in a world that has already taken everything from both of them. But the laughter does not last long. Right after their little cheers moment, Marceline starts coughing. Simon notices immediately. He checks her and realizes she has a fever. She is sick. And in a post-apocalyptic wasteland with no hospitals, no medicine, and no other people around, a fever can be a death sentence. Simon tells her to sleep to save her strength. And then he makes a decision. He remembers seeing a soup shop in a town they passed through recently, a place called the Soupery. He decides that he is going to get Marceline chicken soup, because that is what you give a sick child. That is what a parent does. The world has ended. Civilization is gone. There are mutant creatures wandering the ruins of every city on the planet. And Simon Petrikov is going to walk through all of it to bring a 7-year-old girl a bowl of chicken soup. The problem is that the town is far away, and Simon does not want Marceline to have to walk the whole distance while she is sick. So he tries to find a faster way. He spots an old abandoned motorcycle and figures he can ride it to the town. He has never ridden a motorcycle before. He gets on, starts it up, immediately loses control, and the thing crashes into a wall and explodes. He and Marceline bail out just in time. So the motorcycle plan is a failure. But Simon does not give up. Instead, he finds an old chair with wheels on it, puts Marceline in the chair, and pushes her all the way to the town himself. Through the ruins. Through the wasteland, past wrecked buildings and abandoned streets, and the remains of a world that used to be just like ours. He pushes a child in a wheeled chair across the apocalypse because she is sick and he wants to bring her soup. That is Simon Petrikov. When they finally reach the town and find the soupery, things go wrong very quickly. The town is not empty. There are creatures living in it. Not regular animals or candy people or anything like what exists in the land of Oo during Finn and Jake's time. These are something else entirely. They are mutated beings, leftover victims of the mushroom war, covered in green ooze that seeps from their eyes and mouths. They move like zombies, they are aggressive, and they are everywhere. Simon and Marceline are surrounded. There is no way to fight them off. Simon is not strong. He does not have weapons. He is just a regular person, an antiquarian, a guy who used to study old books and rare objects for a living. He has no business being in a fight with monsters. But he has the crown. And the crown has power. More power than anything else in this broken world. The only cost is his mind. This is the moment that defines Simon Petrikov's entire character. He knows what the crown does. He has felt it taking pieces of him every single time he puts it on. He has watched his skin change color. He has felt his thoughts get cloudy. He has woken up from wearing the crown and not known where he was or what he had done. Every time he uses it, he loses a little more of himself. And every time, it gets harder to come back. But Marceline is sick. Marceline is in danger. And there is nobody else. There is no backup coming. There is no hero riding in to save the day. There is only Simon. A scared, exhausted man with a cursed crown and a little girl who needs him. So he puts the crown on. And he fights. The ice powers hit immediately. Simon blasts the creatures with everything the crown has. He freezes them. He pushes them back. He clears a path for Marceline to be safe. And while all of this is happening, while the crown is flooding his brain with its magic and its madness, Simon does something incredible. He sings. He sings the theme song from the TV show Cheers, the same show he was acting out for Marceline earlier. He sings it over and over, like a prayer, like a lifeline, like something to hold on to while the rest of his mind is being pulled away from him. He is using the song to stay sane. He is using a silly TV theme song as the last rope connecting him to who he really is. Because if he can remember the words, if he can keep singing, then the crown has not won yet. He is still Simon. He is still in there. He is still fighting, but you can hear it slipping. With each line he sings, the voice changes a little. The tone shifts. The warmth in his voice gets colder. The man singing the song at the beginning is not the same man singing it at the end. And when the battle is over, when the creatures are frozen and the danger has passed, Simon takes off the crown and walks back to Marceline. She is looking at him. He looks at her. And the words he says next are the ones that tell you the crown just won another battle. He says, "I love you, Gunther." He does not call her Marceline. He calls her Gunther, the name he will one day give to his penguin. The name that means nothing to the little girl standing in front of him. And Marceline knows what it means. Even at 7 years old, she can see it. She can see that the person in front of her just lost another piece of himself. That the man who acted out Cheers for her and pushed her chair through the apocalypse and fought off monsters with a crown that is eating him alive just came back a little less Simon than he was before. She says, "I love you, Simon," and he smiles. But the smile is not quite right anymore. It is just a little off, just enough for you to notice. Just enough for your stomach to drop. That is the genius of this episode. It does not show you the moment Simon becomes the Ice King. It shows you the moments right before. The small, invisible losses that add up over time. Each time he uses the crown, a little more of Simon dies. Not in a dramatic, visible way, in a quiet way. In the way he says a wrong name. In the way his eyes look a little emptier after the ice fades. In the way he forgets something small and does not even notice he forgot it. This is not a villain origin story. This is a love story. A story about a man who chose to destroy himself one piece at a time because the alternative was letting a little girl die. Simon did not lose his mind because he was weak. He lost his mind because he was strong enough to keep putting that crown on over and over every time Marceline needed him, knowing full well what it was costing him. When the flashback ends, the episode returns to the present. Marceline finishes her story. Finn and Jake are stunned. They had no idea any of this had happened. The Ice King, sitting right there in the room, has no reaction at all. He has been dunking basketballs the entire time Marceline was talking. He did not hear the story, or if he did, it meant nothing to him, because he does not remember any of it. He does not remember the campfire. He does not remember the Cheers performance. He does not remember the motorcycle that exploded. He does not remember pushing a sick little girl in a chair through the ruins of the world. He does not remember the ooze creatures, or the crown, or the song, or the soup. And he does not remember calling her Gunter. None of it. It is all gone. Marceline wraps up the story by saying that she and Simon lived happily ever after. She says it with a sad smile because they both know that is not true. Finn and Jake know it is not true. But that is how Marceline chooses to remember it, because the alternative is too painful. This episode was the last one that Rebecca Sugar worked on before she left Adventure Time to create Steven Universe, and you can feel her fingerprints all over it. The emotion is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not rely on big speeches or shocking plot twists. It is quiet and personal and deeply human. It is about a man singing a TV theme song while his brain falls apart. It is about a child watching the only person she has left slowly become someone else. It is about chicken soup. It is about love as sacrifice, not in the romantic sense, but in the real sense. The kind of sacrifice where you give up pieces of yourself that you can never get back, and you do it anyway because someone needs you. Simon did not have to put on the crown that day. He could have run. He could have hidden. He could have saved himself and let the crown stay in his bag. But then Marceline would have been alone, and that was the one thing Simon Petrikov could not allow, not while there was still enough of him left to stop it. So he put on the crown. He sang a song. He saved a girl, and he lost a little more of who he was. And the next time, he would lose a little more, and the time after that, a little more, until one day there would be nothing left but an old man in a blue robe who talks to penguins and kidnaps princesses and does not know why he feels so sad all the time. Simon Petrikov did not die in the Mushroom War. He died in slow motion, over hundreds of years, one crown use at a time, and Marceline was there for all of it. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But not every sad story in Adventure Time belongs to Simon and Marceline. Some of the show's heaviest moments come from characters you would never expect to carry that kind of weight. Characters who only appear in a single episode. Characters who are not vampires or ice wizards or ancient survivors of a nuclear war. Sometimes the saddest story in the Land of Oo belongs to a cookie. Section 4. A Cookie on a Cliff, the story of Baby Snaps. Simon and Marceline's story stretches across centuries. It spans the entire timeline of Adventure Time, from the ruins of the Mushroom War all the way to the series finale. Their pain is ancient, layered, and built up over hundreds of episodes. But one of the things that makes Adventure Time such a special show is that it does not need centuries of backstory to break your heart. Sometimes it only needs 11 minutes. Sometimes it only needs one character you have never met before. Sometimes the saddest story in the entire Land of Oo does not belong to a 1,000-year-old vampire or a cursed ice wizard. Sometimes it belongs to a chocolate chip cookie named Baby Snaps. And his episode, Princess Cookie from Season 4, is one of the most emotionally heavy things Cartoon Network has ever aired. The episode opens in the middle of a crisis. There is no build-up, no slow introduction. You are dropped straight into the action. Princess Bubblegum, Finn, and Jake are standing behind a line of banana guards outside a convenience store in the Candy Kingdom. Inside the store, a cookie is holding candy people hostage. He has barricaded himself in and he is making demands. He wants one thing and one thing only. He wants Princess Bubblegum's crown. Not a copy, not a replacement, the real crown. The one she wears on her head, the one that makes her a princess. And he says he will not release the hostages until he gets it. Princess Bubblegum tries to offer him a large cowboy hat as a substitute. He refuses. He is not interested in hats. He wants the crown. Bubblegum wants to send in the banana guards to take him down by force, but Jake steps in. He says he and Finn can handle it. They will sneak inside and resolve the situation without violence. Jake disguises himself as a milkman. This was not his first choice. He wanted to be a mailman, but Princess Bubblegum told him he looked more like a milkman, so he went with it. Finn disguises himself as Jake's shadow, hiding underneath him so the cookie will not notice there are two of them. They walk into the store. The cookie, whose name we later learn is Baby Snaps, sees Jake and asks who he is. Jake explains that he is the milkman, there to deliver milk to the hostages. Baby Snaps accepts this. And while Finn sneaks off to quietly take out the cookie's chocolate chip accomplices one by one in the back of the store, Jake sits down with Baby Snaps and starts talking to him. Not as a negotiator, not as someone trying to trick him into giving up, just as someone willing to listen. And what Baby Snaps tells him is the reason this episode hits so hard. Baby Snaps grew up in the candy orphanage. He did not have parents. He did not have a family. He lived with other candy children who were just as lost and just as sad as he was. The orphanage was a depressing place. The kids were unhappy. Nobody was coming to adopt them. Nobody was paying attention to them. They were just there, existing, waiting for something to change. And then one day, something did change. Princess Bubblegum came to visit. She walked into that orphanage and she lit the whole place up. She was kind. She was warm. She talked to the kids like they mattered. She made them laugh. She made them feel, for the first time in maybe their whole lives, like someone important actually cared about them. It was probably the best day those kids had ever had. And Baby Snaps, this tiny little cookie with no family and no future and no reason to believe things would ever get better, looked at Princess Bubblegum and saw the answer to a question he did not even know he was asking. He saw someone who could walk into a room full of broken, forgotten children and make them feel whole just by being there. And he thought to himself, that is what I want to be. That is who I want to become. So when Princess Bubblegum asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up, Baby Snaps looked her right in the face and said, I want to be a princess. He did not say it as a joke. He did not say it to be funny. He said it because he meant it with every fiber of his being. He wanted to be a princess so that he could do what Bubblegum had just done for him. He wanted to walk into rooms full of sad, lonely children and make them feel like somebody cared. He wanted to give other kids the same feeling she had just given him. That was his dream. That was the one thing that made sense to him in a life that had given him nothing else to hold on to. And when he said it, Princess Bubblegum giggled. She let out a small laugh and patted him on the head. To her it was cute, an adorable thing a child said. She probably did not think about it again after she left the orphanage that day. But to Baby Snaps, that laugh was not cute. It was cruel. It was the most important person in his world hearing his most important dream and treating it like a joke. And it destroyed him. That one moment shaped the rest of his life. From that day forward, Baby Snaps carried the weight of that rejection with him everywhere he went. He never became a princess. He never got the chance to make children happy the way bubblegum had made him happy. Instead, he grew up in the orphanage, aged out of the orphanage, and ended up as just another candy person in the Candy Kingdom, with a dream that nobody took seriously. And eventually, the weight of that rejection became too much. It curdled into anger, into resentment, into a desperate last-chance plan to take the one thing that represented everything he ever wanted, the crown. Not because he wanted power, not because he wanted to rule, but because the crown was the symbol of the person he was supposed to become. And if nobody was going to give him the chance to earn it, he was going to take it. When Jake hears this story, something shifts inside him. He is supposed to be there to stop Baby Snaps. He is supposed to be on Princess Bubblegum's side. But the more he listens, the more he starts to understand why this cookie did what he did. And Jake does something that no one expected. He starts helping him. Jake tries to relate to Baby Snaps by making up a story about how Princess Bubblegum did not let him be a mailman, so she made him a milkman instead. It is a silly lie, but the point behind it is real. Jake is telling Baby Snaps that he understands what it feels like to have someone dismiss your dream. And then Jake offers him something better than a hostage situation. He tells Baby Snaps that he does not have to stay in the Candy Kingdom. He can leave. He can go somewhere else. He can start his own kingdom and be the princess of that kingdom. He can make his dream come true on his own terms. And he calls him Princess Cookie. That name changes everything. Nobody in Baby Snap's entire life has ever called him princess. Nobody has ever treated his dream like it was real. And here is this milkman, this stranger, this dog in a costume, doing the one thing that nobody else in the world has done for him. He is taking Baby Snap seriously. The cookie calms down. He agrees. He will leave the Candy Kingdom. He will go build something new. Jake asks Bubblegum for a horse so Princess Cookie can leave peacefully. Bubblegum says no. She says Baby Snaps is a criminal and must go to jail. So Jake takes matters into his own hands. He turns himself into a horse and carries Princess Cookie away. They ride through the candy forest together, Jake galloping as fast as he can, the banana guards chasing behind them. For a few moments, it actually seems like it might work, like Princess Cookie might get away, like maybe there is a happy ending to this story after all. But there is not. They reach the edge of the Candy Gorge, a massive cliff with nothing but a long, deadly drop on the other side. The banana guards are closing in from behind. There is nowhere else to run. The road just ends. And Baby Snaps looks down at the gorge, and then he looks at Jake, and something in his face changes. The hope that was there a few minutes ago is gone. The excitement of the escape, the possibility of a new life, the dream of being a princess in his own kingdom, all of it just drains out of him. Because he knows this is over. He knows the banana guards are going to catch him. He knows he is going to spend the rest of his life in a dungeon, and he knows that his dream, the one he has been carrying since he was a child in the orphanage, is never going to come true. Jake sees it happening. He sees the change in Baby Snap's eyes, and he starts to panic. He tells him everything is going to be fine. He says he will figure something out. He says they will jump the gorge together, but Baby Snaps stops him. He tells Jake not to do it. And then he says something that no one watching this show was prepared to hear from a cartoon cookie on Cartoon Network. He says that he cannot do this anymore. He thanks Jake for everything. He tells him that for a moment, just a brief moment, Jake made him feel like a princess, and it was wonderful. He says it calmly. He says it peacefully, like he has already made up his mind. And then Baby Snaps walks to the edge of the cliff, and he jumps. Not to escape, not to fly. He jumps because he does not want to exist anymore. This is a suicide attempt. on a children's cartoon, on Cartoon Network, in 2012. The show does not hide it. It does not dress it up. It does not pretend it is something else. A character looks at his life, decides he has nothing left, and throws himself off a cliff. And the silence that follows is deafening. There is no music. There is no joke to break the tension. There is just a cookie falling through the air and hitting the ground below. Baby Snaps survives. Because he is a cookie, the fall does not kill him. Instead, he shatters into several broken pieces on the rocks below. A banana guard is shown taking photos of his broken body. He is alive, but he is in pieces, literally. And the next scene shows him in the Candy Kingdom mental hospital. He is sitting at a table playing chess with another candy person. The walls are white, the mood is quiet. The royal tart toter, another mentally unwell character from the show, can be seen crawling on the walls in the background. Baby Snaps looks calm. He looks defeated, like someone who tried everything and came up short, and now has no fight left in him. And then Jake walks in. He tells Baby Snaps there is a delivery for him from the Grass Kingdom. Baby Snaps looks confused. Jake hands him a small crown made of grass. It is not fancy. It is not made of gold or jewels. It is simple and humble and made from the earth. Baby Snaps takes the crown and places it on his head, and in that moment, something changes. His eyes light up. His posture shifts. The other patients in the hospital, the candy people who are just as broken and forgotten as he is, look at him. And one by one, they bow. They bow to Princess Cookie. Not because someone told them to, not because a law required it, but because they saw someone put on a crown and become the person they were always meant to be. And they wanted to honor that. The episode ends there, on a quiet, bittersweet note. Princess Cookie got his crown, but he got it in a mental hospital, after a suicide attempt, after a lifetime of rejection and pain. The dream came true, but not the way it was supposed to. Not the way he imagined it when he was a little cookie in an orphanage, watching Princess Bubblegum light up a room. The episode does not tell you everything is okay now. It does not pretend that a grass crown fixes a broken life. It just shows you a person who was in so much pain that he was willing to end his own existence. And then it shows you a single act of kindness that gave him a reason to keep going. Jake did not save Baby Snaps by fighting someone. He saved him by listening, by caring, by giving him a crown and calling him princess when nobody else would. That is what makes this episode so important. It is not about a villain being defeated or a kingdom being saved. It is about a person who felt invisible, a person whose dream was laughed at by the one person who mattered most, a person who carried that wound for their entire life until it became too heavy to hold. And it is about the fact that sometimes the smallest gesture, a grass crown, a made-up title, a stranger who listens, can be the difference between someone giving up and someone choosing to stay. Adventure Time put a suicide attempt in an 11-minute cartoon and handled it with more care and respect than most live-action shows handle the topic in an entire season. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the show was not done exploring what happens when a child's world is shattered by a parent. Baby Snaps lost his dream because of one moment with Princess Bubblegum. But there is another character in Adventure Time who lost far more than a dream because of a parent. A character who spent his entire childhood imagining that his father was a hero, only to discover the truth was worse than anything he could have imagined. And that discovery cost him more than just his innocence. It cost him his arm. Section 5. Maybe you left me. Finn meets his father and loses his arm. For most of his life, Finn the human did not know who his parents were. He knew he was adopted. He knew that Joshua and Margaret, 2 dogs, had raised him as their own alongside their biological son, Jake. He knew that he had been found as a baby on a hill, alone, crying, sitting in his own filth with nobody around to claim him. And for a long time, that was enough. Finn did not need to know where he came from, because he knew where he belonged. He had Jake. He had the tree fort. He had Princess Bubblegum and Marceline and BMO and the entire land of Oo. He had a life, and it was a good one. But as he got older, the questions started to eat at him. Who were his parents? Why did they leave him? Was his father alive somewhere out there? And if he was, what kind of person was he? Finn spent a lot of time building his father up in his head. He imagined noble reasons for why Martin Mertens was not around. Maybe he had been captured by thieves and forced into slavery. Maybe he was a brave warrior who had to leave his son behind to protect him from something dangerous. Maybe there was a perfectly good explanation for why a father would abandon his baby on a hill in the middle of nowhere. Finn needed to believe that because the alternative was too painful. The alternative was that his father left him on purpose, that his father did not care, that his father looked at his own child and chose to walk away. And Finn was not ready to accept that. The truth about Martin's location came through a chain of events that started with Billy, one of Oo's greatest heroes. Before Billy died, his spirit appeared to Finn and told him that his father was alive and being held in a place called the Crystal Citadel. The Crystal Citadel was a prison, a cosmic prison floating in space, designed to hold the most dangerous criminals in the universe. When Finn heard that his father was in the Citadel, he did what Finn always does. He assumed the best. He figured his dad must be the warden, or maybe a guard, or maybe someone who was wrongfully imprisoned. Anything but the obvious answer. Anything but the truth. In the Season 6 premiere, a 2-part episode called Wake Up and Escape from the Citadel, Finn and Jake finally make their way to the Citadel, but they do not arrive alone. The Lich, one of the most powerful and evil beings in the Adventure Time universe, arrives at the Citadel first and begins destroying it from the inside. The Lich's presence melts the crystal that holds the prisoners in place, and the inmates start breaking free. Among them is a heavy-set man in a red outfit. He is stuck halfway in the crystal and calls out for help. Finn sees him and immediately recognizes something familiar about him. This man looks like him. Not exactly like him, but close enough. 2 arms, 2 legs, a face with human features. In a world where Finn has spent his entire life as seemingly the only human, that resemblance is impossible to ignore. This is Martin Mertens. This is Finn's father. Finn rushes over and helps free Martin from the crystal. And in that moment, Finn is hopeful. He is excited. After years of wondering, after years of imagining, he is finally standing face to face with his biological father. This is supposed to be the moment where everything makes sense. The moment where Martin explains why he left. The moment where he hugs his son and says he is sorry and they start to build a relationship. But that is not what happens. What happens instead is one of the most painful scenes in the entire series. Martin does not recognize Finn. He does not hug him. He does not cry. He does not say he missed him. He barely looks at him. From the very first second he is free, Martin's only concern is getting out of the Citadel alive. He is looking for escape routes. He is scanning the room for opportunities. Finn is standing right in front of him, practically begging for a connection, and Martin is looking over his shoulder for the exit. When Finn tries to talk to him, tries to ask him questions about why he was abandoned, Martin gives the most hollow, useless answers imaginable. He says he does not remember. He shrugs. He makes vague excuses. At one point, he cannot even get Finn's name right, calling him Flynn instead of Finn. And then he says the line that cuts deepest of all. When Finn asks why Martin left him, Martin says, "I don't know. Maybe you left me." He puts the blame on a baby, on an infant who was found alone on a hill, helpless and crying. Martin Mertens looks at his own son and suggests that maybe the baby was the one who chose to leave. That is who Finn's father is. Not a hero, not a warrior, not someone who was forced to give up his child to protect him, just a selfish, empty man who does not care about anyone but himself. He does not have a noble reason for abandoning Finn. He does not have any reason at all. He just did not want to be a father. And 1,000 imaginary stories that Finn built up in his head come crashing down in a single conversation. But Martin is not done hurting Finn. As the citadel continues to collapse around them, Martin's leg gets badly injured. Finn sees an opportunity to bond with his father. He uses guardian blood, a healing substance from the citadel's massive guardian creatures, to fix Martin's leg. It works. Martin's leg heals completely, and for a brief moment, Finn thinks this act of kindness might change things. Maybe if he helps his father will finally see him, finally care, finally stay. But the second Martin's leg is healed, he does what he has been trying to do since the moment he was freed. He runs. He climbs onto a chunk of crystal that other escaping criminals are using as a raft to flee through a portal, and he leaves. Again. Without looking back. Without saying goodbye. Without even acknowledging that the boy who just saved his leg is the same boy he left on a hill years ago. Finn cannot accept it. He refuses to let go. He chases after the floating crystal and grabs onto a vine-like strand that connects it to the citadel. He is dangling in the air, holding on with everything he has, trying to physically stop his father from leaving him a second time. And as he holds on, his grass sword reacts. The grass sword had been bonded to Finn's right arm for a while, and in this moment of extreme emotion, it takes over. The sword swells and expands, wrapping around his entire arm, growing into a massive tangle of vines and thorns as it tries to keep hold of the connection. Finn's body is telling him to let go. Jake is shouting at him to let go, calling Martin a loser, but Finn will not let go. Because letting go means accepting that his father does not love him, and he is not ready for that. Martin sees what is happening. He sees his own son dangling from the edge of a portal, arm wrapped in thorns, face twisted in pain and desperation. And his reaction is not concern, it is not guilt, it is disgust. He asks the criminal piloting the escape to make the portal bigger to pull them away faster. The portal grows. The pressure on Finn's arm increases. The grass sword strains. And then, with a horrible snap, Finn's arm gives out. The grass sword tears away from his body, and his right arm goes with it. Finn falls into the water below, one-armed, bleeding, and completely broken. Martin sails off into space without a second thought. His last words before disappearing through the portal were not about Finn. They were about himself. When Finn lands in the water, a small drop of guardian blood touches the stump where his arm used to be. Instead of regrowing the arm, the blood causes a tiny flower to sprout from the wound. Finn washes up on shore. Jake is there. Shelby, a small worm who had been hiding the whole time, crawls onto Finn's lap and starts crying. Shelby cries the tears that Finn cannot. Because Finn is not crying. He is not screaming. He is not doing anything. He is just sitting there, staring at nothing, with a flower where his arm used to be and a hole where his heart used to be. He came to the citadel looking for his father. He left without an arm, without answers, and without the one thing he wanted more than anything in the world. He just wanted his dad to care, and his dad did not. This episode changed Finn as a character in a way that nothing else in the series had done before. He had been heartbroken before. He had gone through a rough breakup with Flame Princess. He had dealt with rejection from Princess Bubblegum. But those were the growing pains of a kid figuring out love. This was different. This was the discovery that the person who was supposed to love you the most in the world, the person whose DNA you share, the person who is literally the reason you exist, does not care if you live or die. Martin did not just abandon Finn as a baby. He abandoned him again, right to his face, after Finn healed his leg and begged him to stay. The arm is devastating, but the arm is not the real wound. The real wound is the knowledge that Finn's father saw him, knew him, and chose to leave anyway. The arm will grow back eventually. That knowledge never goes away. Years of foreshadowing had pointed to Finn losing his right arm. Multiple alternate versions of Finn across the show, from the Farm World timeline to visions in other episodes, had been shown with a missing right arm. Fans had been waiting for it, theorizing about how it would happen, expecting some epic battle or noble sacrifice. Nobody expected it to happen because a boy loved his father too much to let go of a rope. That is what makes this moment so sad. It is not a hero losing an arm in combat. It is a child losing an arm because he held on too tight to someone who is never going to hold him back. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But the physical loss of his arm was only the beginning. What came next was something even harder to watch. The anger, the confusion, the desperate, painful process of a teenage boy trying to figure out what to do with a rage that has nowhere to go and a sadness that has no bottom. And that process nearly sent Finn to a very dark place. One where he was willing to build a tower all the way to space just to hurt the man who hurt him. Section 6. A Lullaby Before the End of the World. Marceline and Her Mother. The last two sections have been about Finn, about his father, about losing his arm, about the rage and the grief that followed. And those moments are some of the heaviest the show has ever produced. But Adventure Time has always understood that sadness is not just about big dramatic events. Sometimes the saddest moments are the quiet ones, the small ones. A song sung in a soft voice, a mother's hand on a child's head, a memory so old and so fragile that even thinking about it too hard might cause it to break apart and disappear. And no character in Adventure Time carries more of those fragile, quiet memories than Marceline. We have already talked about Marceline and Simon, about the stuffed bear in the ruins, about the chicken soup and the Cheers theme song, and the slow, painful loss of the only father figure she ever had. But there is a chapter of Marceline's life that the show waited a very long time to explore. A chapter that came before Simon. Before the Mushroom War. Before the destruction and the monsters and the 1,000 years of wandering the land of Oo as an immortal vampire. There was a time when Marceline was just a little girl. A normal little girl with a mother who loved her. And the show finally showed us that time in the Stakes miniseries during Season 7. Specifically in an episode called Everything Stays. Stakes is an 8-episode miniseries that follows Marceline as she tries to have her vampirism removed by Princess Bubblegum. The idea is simple. If Bubblegum can extract the vampiric essence from Marceline's body, Marceline will become mortal again. No more drinking red, no more burning in sunlight, no more immortality. She can live a normal life, age normally, and eventually die like everyone else. Marceline wants this. She is tired of being a vampire, tired of watching everyone around her change while she stays the same, tired of being stuck. But the procedure has a side effect that nobody expected. When Bubblegum pulls the vampire essence out of Marceline, the vampires that Marceline had absorbed centuries ago are released back into the world. Now Marceline and her friends have to hunt them all down again. And in between the action and the fighting and the comedy of chasing vampires across Oo, the miniseries takes time to do something the show had never done before. It takes us back to Marceline's earliest memories, back to the time before everything went wrong, back to her mother. The episode, Everything Stays, begins with Marceline in a very bad situation. The vampirism cure has left her mortal, and circumstances have led to her being tied up and exposed to the rising sun. Without her vampire powers, sunlight will kill her. As the light creeps closer and closer, Marceline starts to flash back through her memories. Her life plays out in reverse, almost like the show is rewinding her entire existence. And the very first memory it lands on, the oldest one, the one buried deepest, is the one that matters most. Marceline is a little girl. She could not be more than 5 or 6 years old. She is lying on her mother's lap inside a small trailer. It is a simple, modest home. Nothing fancy, just a mother and her daughter living a quiet life. Marceline's mother has just finished telling her the story of how she met Marceline's father. The details of that story are not shared with the audience, but you can tell from the warmth in the scene that this was a happy time. This was before the war, before the bombs, before the world ended. This was when life was still normal. And in this moment, the most important thing happening in the world is that a mother is trying to get her daughter to take a nap. Marceline does not want to sleep. She wants to go outside and play. Her mother tells her it is nap time. Marceline pushes back. She says her dreams are weird and she does not like them. And her mother, in the gentle and patient way that only a parent can, tells her that something weird might just be something familiar viewed from a different angle. It is a small piece of advice, the kind of thing a parent says to calm a restless child. But for Marceline, those words end up carrying the weight of eternity. Because Marceline is going to live for over 1,000 years. She is going to see the world destroyed and rebuilt. She is going to watch everyone she loves change or die or forget her. She is going to become a vampire, an immortal creature stuck in the body of a teenager while the world keeps moving around her. And through all of that, through every strange and painful thing she will ever experience, her mother's words will stay with her. Something weird is just something familiar from a different angle. Change is not the end of something. It is just a shift in perspective. And then her mother sings to her a lullaby, a soft, gentle song about how things change even when they seem to stay the same. About how you can leave something behind and find it later, and it will look different, but it is still the same thing underneath. The song is called Everything Stays, and it was written by Rebecca Sugar, the same person who wrote the music for I Remember You, and who storyboarded the Simon and Marcy episode before leaving to create Steven Universe. Sugar came back specifically to write this one song for the Stakes miniseries, and the way the song came about is actually connected to a real moment in Sugar's life. She once lost a stuffed animal in a garden when she was a child. When she found it months later, the side that had been facing the sun was faded and bleached, but the underside was still the same color it had always been. The toy was not better or worse, it was just different. And that feeling, that realization that things change on the surface, but something underneath always remains, is what the song is about. Marceline's mother sings this lullaby to her daughter in the trailer, and Marceline falls asleep on her lap. That is it. That is the entire scene. A mother singing to her child, a child falling asleep feeling safe and loved. There is no drama, no conflict, no villain, no explosion. Just a quiet moment between two people who love each other. And it is one of the saddest things Adventure Time has ever shown us. Because the audience knows what is coming. The audience knows that this peaceful little trailer, and this gentle mother, and this sleepy little girl are living on borrowed time. The Mushroom War is coming. The bombs are going to fall. The world outside that trailer is going to be reduced to ashes and ruins, and Marceline's mother is not going to survive it. The show never gives us a graphic depiction of what happened to Marceline's mother. It does not show her death on screen, but the pieces are there if you put them together. Marceline's mother does not appear in any of the post-war flashbacks. She is not with Simon and Marceline in the ruins. She is not mentioned as being alive anywhere in the timeline after the war. What the show does eventually confirm, through context and later material, is that Marceline's mother died as a result of the Mushroom War's aftermath. She got sick, the kind of sick that comes from living in a world that has been poisoned by war. And she died, leaving Marceline alone, completely alone. Until a man named Simon Petrikov found her crying in the wreckage of a city and handed her a stuffed bear. That is the full timeline now. Marceline had a mother who loved her. Her mother sang to her and held her and made her feel safe. Then the war came and took her mother away. Then Simon found her and took care of her. Then the crown took Simon away. And then Marceline was alone, truly alone. A child with no parents, no family, and no one left in the world who remembered her or cared about her. She became a vampire not out of choice, but out of survival. And she spent the next 1,000 years wandering the land of Oo, immortal, unable to age, unable to die, carrying the memories of every person she had ever lost, with no one to share them with. What makes the lullaby scene so powerful is not what happens in the scene itself. It is what the scene represents. It represents the last time Marceline's life was simple. The last time she felt truly safe. The last time she was just a kid who did not want to take a nap. Before the war, before Simon, before the crown, before the vampires, before the 1,000 years of loneliness. There was this one moment, this one memory, a trailer, a mother, a song. And that memory is still in there, buried underneath everything else, after all this time. Marceline has lived for over 1,000 years. She has fought vampires and demons and monsters. She has been through things that would break most people 10 times over. And the thing she holds on to, the thing that still lives inside her, is the sound of her mother's voice singing her to sleep. At the end of the Stakes miniseries, in the final episode called The Dark Cloud, Marceline ends up becoming a vampire again. The cure did not stick. She is right back where she started, immortal, unchanging, stuck. And in the final moments of that episode, Marceline sits down and sings her mother's lullaby herself. The same melody, the same words. But now it is not a mother singing to a child. It is a 1,000-year-old woman singing to herself. And the meaning of the song has changed completely. When her mother sang it, it was about comfort, about reassuring a little girl that change is not scary. But when Marceline sings it, it is about acceptance, about acknowledging that she is going to live forever and the people she loves are not, about understanding that everything around her will keep changing and she will keep staying, and the best she can do is hold on to the things that matter and let the rest go. As she sings, the show plays a montage of life across Oo. People going about their days, friends laughing together, the sun rising over the Candy Kingdom, everything back to normal, everything the same as it was before Stakes began. But also different, because Marceline is different. She went into this miniseries wanting to escape what she was. She came out of it choosing to accept what she is. And the song her mother gave her, the lullaby from the trailer, is the thing that carries her through. It did not fix anything. It did not bring her mother back. It did not cure her vampirism or stop the passage of time or make the loneliness go away. But it stayed right where she left it, faded on one side, but still the same underneath. That is what Adventure Time does better than almost any other show. It does not pretend that pain goes away. It does not wrap things up in neat little bows. It lets its characters carry their sadness with them, the way real people do. Marceline will always miss her mother. She will always miss Simon. She will always be the girl in the trailer who did not want to take a nap. And she will always have the song. Not as a cure, not as an answer, but as a reminder that the people who loved her are still with her, even if they are gone. Even if 1,000 years have passed, even if the world ended and started over and ended again, the love stays right where you left it, changed on the surface, the same underneath. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But Marceline was not the only character in Adventure Time who lost a mother. There was another character who spent his whole life not knowing who his mother was or what happened to her. A character who crossed an entire ocean to find the answer. And when he finally did, the truth was more painful than anything he could have imagined. Because his mother was alive. But she was not really alive, not in the way that matters. Section 7. The son she could never hold again. Finn meets his mother, Minerva. Finn's experience with his father, Martin, was one of the worst things that ever happened to him. He crossed the universe to find the man who abandoned him, and what he got in return was indifference, lies, and a missing arm. Martin did not care. Martin never cared. And after the events at the Crystal Citadel, Finn had to live with the knowledge that his biological father was not a hero, not a victim, not a misunderstood man who was forced to leave his son behind. He was just a selfish person who did not want to be a dad. But the story of Finn's parents was not over, because there was still one question that had never been answered. What happened to his mother? Was she alive? Was she dead? Did she leave him too, or was she taken from him the way Simon was taken from Marceline? The Islands miniseries, which aired during Season 8, finally gave Finn the answer. And like almost everything in Adventure Time, the answer was both beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. The Islands miniseries follows Finn, Jake, BMO, and Susan Strong as they leave the land of Vu and sail across the ocean to find the human islands. These islands are where the last surviving humans from the Mushroom War eventually settled after fleeing the mainland over 1,000 years ago. They built a whole civilization out there, a society with technology, structure, jobs, and rules. The humans on the islands were organized into different roles. Some were builders, some were seekers, whose job was to track down anyone who tried to escape, and some were helpers. The helpers were the caretakers, the healers, the ones who dedicated their lives to making sure everyone else was safe and healthy. And the most dedicated helper of them all was a woman named Minerva Campbell, Finn's mother. Before we get to the reunion, the show takes time to tell Minerva's story, and it does this through a flashback episode called Min and Marty, which is one of the most important episodes in the entire miniseries. The flashback shows us how Minerva and Martin met. Minerva was a helper on Hub Island, one of the human-inhabited islands. She was a doctor. She was kind, selfless, hard-working, and completely devoted to taking care of other people. She had bags under her eyes from working long shifts and never taking breaks. She was the kind of person who would give everything she had to make sure someone else was okay. And then one day, a man named Martin Mertens literally walked into her life by jaywalking in front of her car while she was driving a group of elderly women to their destination. She nearly ran him over. She was furious. He found her charming. Martin was a known con artist. He had a history of lying, cheating, and running scams on the people around him. But Minerva saw something in him. Or maybe she just wanted to see something in him. Either way, she covered for him, protected him from being sent to re-education, and the two of them fell in love. They had a son. They named him Finn, and for a brief window of time, they were a family. A real, normal, happy family. Martin even seemed like he was trying to change. Like maybe having a son and a partner who believed in him was enough to make him want to be better. But that window did not stay open for long. Martin's past caught up with him. An old enemy, a woman referred to as the Widow, tracked him down. Martin was forced to flee the house in the middle of the night with baby Finn while Minerva was at work. He grabbed his son, ran to the shore, and put Finn on a raft. They were supposed to go together. They were supposed to escape and come back when it was safe. But the Guardian, a massive robot that patrols the waters around the islands and prevents anyone from leaving, attacked the raft. Martin and Finn were separated. The raft carrying baby Finn drifted away from the islands, across the ocean, all the way to the land of Oo, where he was eventually found alone on a hill by Joshua and Margaret, the two dogs who would become his adoptive parents. Martin disappeared, and Minerva was left behind, not knowing where either of them were. She searched for them. She sent Kara, a seeker who would later become Susan Strong, to track Finn and Martin down. But Kara got into an accident on her way out, suffered a head injury, lost her memory, and ended up living with the human tribe in Oo with no idea who she was or what she had been sent to do. Minerva never got answers. Her son was gone. Her partner was gone. The seeker she sent to find them was gone, and she was alone. But she did not stop being a helper, because that was who Minerva was at her core. Even when her own life was falling apart, she kept taking care of other people. She kept showing up. She kept working. She kept healing. And then something terrible happened. Dr. Gross, the cybernetic human in charge of the Seeker program, accidentally released a deadly virus onto the islands. People started dying. Helpers started dying. Minerva watched her colleagues fall one by one as the disease spread through the population. She worked around the clock trying to save as many people as she could. She pushed herself past every limit a human body has. And eventually, the virus caught her too. Minerva was dying. She was the last helper left standing, and she was dying. And there were still people who needed her, people who would have no one if she was gone. So she made a choice, the same kind of impossible, selfless, devastating choice that Simon Petrikov made when he put on the crown. Minerva uploaded her consciousness into the island's computer network. She transferred her mind, her personality, her memories, everything that made her who she was, into a digital system. And from that system, she programmed hundreds of robots with her likeness, her voice, and her desire to help. The Minerva bots spread across the islands, doing everything the real Minerva would have done. Putting out fires, directing traffic, running medical checkups, guarding prisoners, keeping people safe. Minerva saved her people. But the cost was her body, her physical self, the flesh and blood woman who once held her baby son, who once drove elderly women to their appointments, who once fell in love with a con artist because she saw good in him. That woman was gone. What remained was a digital copy, a mind living inside a machine, alive in every way that matters except the one way that matters most. She could think, she could feel, she could talk and plan and remember, but she could not touch. She could not hold, she could not hug her son. When Finn finally arrives on Founder's Island, one of the Minerva bots takes a blood sample from him and identifies him. The system recognizes him, and suddenly, Minerva knows. Her son is alive. Her son is here, after all these years. After all the searching and the grief and the not knowing, Finn is standing right in front of her. And the reunion is everything you would want it to be and everything you were afraid it would be, all at once. Minerva is overjoyed. She is emotional. She cannot believe he is real. And Finn, for the first time in his life, is looking at his mother's face, not on a photograph, not in a dream, but right there in front of him. Except it is not really her face. It is a screen, a projection, a robot wearing her appearance. His mother is everywhere on this island and nowhere at the same time. Minerva wants Finn to stay, desperately. She has already lost him once. She has already spent years not knowing if he was alive or dead. And now that she has him back, the thought of letting him walk out the door and sail back across the ocean to a world full of monsters and magic and danger is more than she can bear. She shows Finn that she has been watching his memories, his adventures, and what she sees terrifies her. She sees him fighting creatures. She sees him losing his arm. She sees him dating fire, literally dating a girl made of fire. All of it confirms what she already believed, that the outside world is too dangerous and that Finn is safer here, on the island, where she can protect him forever. Finn tries to show her the good parts of his life. He tries to explain that Ooh is not just danger and chaos, that he has friends who love him, that he helps people, just like she does, that the world she is afraid of is also the world that made him who he is. But Minerva does not see it that way. Her fear overrides everything, and in a moment of desperation, she tries to do something drastic. She attempts to upload the consciousness of every person on the island into the digital network, the same way she uploaded herself. In her mind, this is the safest option. If everyone exists as data, no one can get hurt. No one can get sick. No one can die. It is safety in its most extreme form, and it is also a prison. Finn stops her, not with a fight, not with a weapon, but by sharing his memories with her. He shows her every moment in his life where he helped someone, every act of kindness, every time he put himself in danger, not because he was reckless, but because someone needed him. He shows her that the world she is so afraid of is the same world that taught him to be good, that taught him to be brave, that taught him to be a helper, just like her. And when Minerva sees this, she understands. She does not like it. She does not feel good about it. But she understands. Her son is who he is because of the life he lived in Ooh, and she cannot take that away from him without taking away the very thing that makes him her son. So she lets him go. Again. For the second time in his life, Finn's mother has to watch him leave. The first time, she had no choice. He was taken from her as a baby, and she spent years searching for him. This time, she is choosing to let him go. And it is harder, because this time she knows exactly what she is giving up. She is giving up the chance to be his mother in the way she always wanted to be. She is giving up birthdays and dinners and conversations and all the small, ordinary moments that make up a life together. She is giving up the one thing she wanted more than anything in the world, just to let her son be free. As Finn sails away from the island, he puts on a virtual reality headset that allows him to enter a digital space where Minerva has created a small virtual home. And inside that home, mother and son share a hug. It is not a real hug. Minerva has no body. Finn is holding on to a digital image of the woman who gave birth to him. She can feel it only as data. He can feel it only through a headset, but it is the closest they will ever get. Minerva gives him one last piece of motherly advice, something about not eating too many blueberries. It is such a small, ordinary mom thing to say, and that is what makes it hurt, because that is all she wants to be. A mom. A regular mom who tells her kid to eat his vegetables and calls him before bed and hugs him when he comes home. But she cannot be that, because she gave her body up to save her people. And Finn cannot stay, because the world needs him too. The signal between Finn's headset and Minerva's system grows weaker as the ship moves farther from the island. The image of his mother starts to flicker, the connection fades, and then she is gone. Finn takes off the headset. He is sitting on a boat in the middle of the ocean, heading back to Ooh, with tears on his face that he does not try to hide. He found his mother. She was alive. She loved him more than anything. And he still had to leave her behind. Not because she did not want him, but because the world is not built in a way that lets them be together. She is Data on an island, he is a boy on a boat, and the ocean between them is very, very wide. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But Finn's journey was far from over. He still had battles ahead. He still had loss to face. And not all of that loss would come from parents or family. Some of the hardest goodbyes in Adventure Time come from the people who are not your blood, but who feel like they should have been. People who carry your face, share your memories, and want nothing more than to be you. And there was one person in particular who carried that burden more than anyone else. His name was Fern, and his story is one of the saddest in the entire series. Section 8. I'm Not Doing So Good. The Life and Death of Fern. Finn has lost a lot over the course of Adventure Time. He lost his innocence when he met his father. He lost his arm when he refused to let go. He lost a version of his mother when he sailed away from the islands. But there is one loss that is unlike anything else Finn ever experienced. Because this time, the person he lost was not a parent or a friend or a mentor. It was himself. Or at least, a version of himself. A person who had Finn's face, Finn's memories, Finn's voice, and Finn's desire to be a hero. A person who wanted nothing more in the entire world than to be Finn, and who was destroyed by the simple, painful truth that he could not be. His name was Fern. And his story, from beginning to end, is one of the most tragic things Adventure Time ever told. To understand Fern, you need to understand two things. The first is the grass sword. This was a cursed blade that bonded itself to Finn's right arm back in Season 5. It was powerful, but it had a mind of its own. The sword was connected to a creature called the Grass Demon, which lived inside the curse and had its own will. The second thing you need to understand is the Finn sword. This was a different weapon entirely. It was created during a time travel incident and contained a tiny, living version of Finn trapped inside it. That version of Finn was conscious. He was aware. He was alive inside the blade, but he had no way to get out. In the Season 7 finale, an episode called Reboot, something happened that changed everything. During a fight, the grass sword detached itself from Finn's body and collided with the Finn sword. The two objects merged together. The grass demon fused with the alternate Finn who was living inside the sword. And from that fusion, a new being was born. He looked like Finn, but made entirely of grass. He had Finn's body shape, Finn's hat shape, and Finn's general appearance, but everything about him was green and plant-like. He woke up confused, disoriented, and absolutely convinced that he was the real Finn. This is where Fern's tragedy begins, because from the very first moment of his existence, Fern believed he was Finn. He had Finn's memories. He remembered growing up in the tree fort. He remembered Jake. He remembered all of the adventures. As far as his mind was concerned, he was Finn the human, and the boy standing in front of him wearing a white hat was the imposter. In the episode Two Swords, Fern goes to the tree fort and tries to live Finn's life. He tries to interact with BMO. He tries to act normal. But things keep going wrong. He does not fit. Something is off. And when Jake finally tells him the truth, that he is not Finn, that he is something new, something different, Fern cannot handle it. He runs away, confused and scared, not knowing who he is or what he is supposed to be. Think about that for a second. Imagine waking up one day with all of your memories, all of your feelings, all of your personality, and then being told that none of it belongs to you. That the life you remember is not your life. That the people you love do not see you as the person you think you are. That is Fern's reality from day one. He is not a villain. He is not a monster. He is a lost, confused person who has been given an identity that does not fit and told to figure it out on his own. And the show does not rush past this. It lets Fern sit in that pain. It lets him struggle. It lets him try to find his place in a world where his place has already been taken by the original version of himself. For a while, Finn tries to help. He genuinely does. In the episode Do No Harm, Jake tries to help Fern find his own path, figure out who he is separate from Finn. But the grass demon inside Fern is always there, whispering, pushing, making things worse. The demon feeds on Fern's insecurity. It takes every doubt Fern has about himself and turns it into anger. Every time Fern looks at Finn and sees the life he was supposed to have, the demon uses that jealousy to tighten its grip. Fern is fighting two battles at once. He is fighting to figure out who he is, and he is fighting the thing inside him that does not want him to figure it out. The grass demon does not want Fern to find peace. The grass demon wants control. And eventually, the demon wins. Not all at once, not in one big dramatic moment. It happens slowly, the same way the crown took Simon, piece by piece, choice by choice, until Fern is no longer the confused, scared grass boy who just wanted to be Finn. He becomes something harder, something angrier, something that can be used, and the person who uses him is Uncle Gumbald. Gumbald is Princess Bubblegum's uncle, a candy person who has been holding a grudge against her for centuries. He wants to go to war with the Candy Kingdom. He wants to take Bubblegum down, and he needs soldiers. So he finds Fern, who is at his lowest point, his most vulnerable, his most easily manipulated, and he offers him what the grass demon has been whispering about all along. A chance to replace Finn. A chance to be the real one. Gumbald modifies Fern, making him more powerful, transforming him into a figure known as the Green Knight. Fern is given a suit of grass armor, a new voice, and a new purpose. He is no longer trying to find himself. He is trying to destroy the person whose existence makes his own feel meaningless. In the episode 17, the Green Knight crashes Finn's birthday party. Nobody knows who he is at first, but during an arm wrestling match, Fern reveals himself. He is stronger now, angrier. He defeats Finn and is about to hurt him badly before Gumbald stops him. Fern leaves with Gumbald, promising to return. And when he does return, in the episode Gumbaldia, and then in the series finale, Come Along With Me, he is fully committed to Gumbaldi's side. He is ready to fight in the Gum War. He is ready to face Finn. He has become the villain that the grass demon always wanted him to be. But here is the thing about Fern. Even at his worst, even when he is armored up and standing on the wrong side of a battlefield, you can feel the pain underneath. He did not choose this. Not really. Every step of his journey was shaped by forces outside his control. He did not ask to be created. He did not ask to have Finn's memories. He did not ask for the grass demon to be fused into his body. He did not ask to be manipulated by Gumbald. Fern is not a villain by nature. He is a victim who ran out of options. And the show knows this. Adventure Time never lets you forget that underneath the Green Knight armor, there is a person who just wanted to belong somewhere. In the series finale, Come Along With Me, everything comes to a head. Finn, trying to prevent the Gum War from happening, uses nightmare juice to force himself, Jake, Fern, Princess Bubblegum, and Gumbald into a shared dream state. Inside the dream, Finn and Fern end up facing each other. But instead of fighting, Finn tries to reach him. He tries to remind Fern that they are two sides of the same coin, that they share the same pain, that they do not have to be enemies. And slowly, painfully, Fern starts to listen. The anger starts to crack. The armor starts to fall away. And for the first time in a very long time, Fern is not the Green Knight. He is just Fern. Scared. Tired. lost. Together, Finn and Fern enter Finn's psychological vault, a place deep inside his mind where he locks away the things he does not want to face. Inside the vault, they find the grass demon, the real enemy. The thing that has been controlling Fern, feeding his worst impulses, and keeping him trapped in a cycle of anger and jealousy. Finn holds the demon down, and Fern delivers the killing blow. The grass demon is destroyed. Fern is free. For the first time since he was created, the voice in his head is gone. The thing that was twisting him is dead. He can finally think clearly. He can finally be himself. But the grass demon's final warning comes true. Before Fern killed it, the demon told Finn something chilling. It said that without the demon, Fern has no body. The grass demon was not just a parasite living inside Fern. It was the thing holding Fern together. Without it, there is nothing keeping Fern's physical form intact. And when they wake up from the dream and return to the real world, Fern begins to fall apart. His grass body starts to break down. Pieces of him begin to crumble and dissolve. He is disintegrating, slowly, right in front of everyone. But Fern does not give up. Even as his body is falling apart, he joins the fight against GOLB, the massive cosmic being that has descended on Ooh during the finale. He fights alongside Finn, alongside Jake, alongside all the people he was supposed to be at war with just hours earlier. And when someone asks him why he is still fighting in the state he is in, Fern says he will defend Ooh down to his last blade. He is dying, and he is using the time he has left to be a hero, the thing he always wanted to be, the thing the grass demon never let him be. After Golb is defeated, Fern's time runs out. His body is almost gone. He is barely holding together. And in his final moments, he turns to Finn and tells him that he is not doing so good. It is said so simply, so quietly. No big dramatic speech, no villain monologue, just a dying person admitting that this is the end. And then Fern tells Finn his last wish. He wants to be planted at the tree fort, the place where Finn grew up, the place where Fern's borrowed memories say he grew up too, the one place in the world that felt like home to both of them. What Fern does not know is that the tree fort was destroyed during the battle, but Finn does not tell him that. He just nods. He promises. Fern dies. His body dissolves completely, leaving behind nothing but a tiny seedling in the shape of the Finn sword. That is all that remains of a person who had Finn's memories, Finn's heart, and Finn's dream of being a hero. A seed. Finn takes the seed and plants it in the exact spot where the tree fort used to stand, keeping his promise. And the seed grows immediately. It sprouts into a massive tree, similar to the tree fort, with a brand new Finn sword lodged in the top. 1,000 years later, in the future timeline shown at the end of the series, two new adventurers named Shermie and Beth find that tree and pull the Finn sword from it. Fern's final gift to the world is a new beginning, a new sword for a new hero. A tree growing where a house used to be. Life from death. Something new from something lost. Fern never got to be Finn. He never got to live the life he remembered. He never got to grow old in the tree fort, or go on adventures with Jake, or be the hero that his borrowed memories told him he was supposed to be. But in the end, he got something that might matter more than any of that. He got to choose who he was. Not the grass demon's puppet, not Gumbald's weapon, not a copy or a replacement or a shadow, just Fern. A person who fought the thing inside him that wanted to destroy everything, and won, even though winning cost him his life. He chose to be good. He chose to fight for Ooh. He chose to be planted where home used to be. And that tree, standing tall 1,000 years later, is proof that Fern mattered, that he was real, that he was here. Before we move on, If you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But Fern was not the only person in the series finale who gave up everything to save someone they loved. There was another sacrifice in Come Along With Me, one that was even more permanent, one that cost a woman her entire existence, her body, her mind, her future, all to save a man who had already been saved once before and lost again. A man named Simon. And the woman who gave everything for him was named Betty. Section 9. The woman who became a god to save a man who would never know. Betty Groff's sacrifice. We have talked a lot about Simon Petrikov in this video. We have talked about his video diaries. We have talked about the crown that stole his mind. We have talked about the letter he wrote to a little girl named Marceline before he forgot who she was. But there is one part of Simon's story that we have not fully explored yet, the part that hurts the most. Because there was someone who loved Simon more than anyone, someone who gave up everything for him, not once, not twice, but over and over and over again, across centuries, across dimensions, across the boundaries of what it even means to be human. And in the end, she gave up her very existence, her body, her mind, her future, everything that made her a person, just so he could live. Her name was Betty Groff, and her story is the most devastating love story Adventure Time ever told. Betty was Simon's fiancée. Before the crown, before the mushroom war, before any of this, they were two people in love. Simon was an antiquarian, a collector of rare and historical objects. Betty was a researcher. They wrote books on magic together. They had a life together. They were going to get married. And then Simon bought a crown from a dock worker in Scandinavia and tried it on as a joke to make Betty laugh. And nothing was ever the same again. The crown started changing him. It turned his skin blue. It made him act in ways he could not control. He would black out and not remember what he had done. He chased Betty through the streets, shooting ice from his hands, screaming for his princess. Betty, terrified of the man her fiancé was becoming, ran. She disappeared, and Simon, in his video diary, says he never saw her again. He does not blame her. He does not say she was wrong to leave. He just says she was gone. For over 1,000 years, that was the end of the story. Simon became the Ice King. Betty became a memory, a name whispered in old videotapes, a face in a photograph on a wall. The woman who left because the man she loved became someone else. And then, in the season 5 episode simply titled Betty, everything changed. In that episode, a creature called Bella Noche, a being of pure anti-magic, drained the power from every wizard in Oo, including the Ice King's crown. And without the crown's magic, something incredible happened. Ice King turned back into Simon. For the first time in 1,000 years, Simon Petrikov was himself again. His mind was clear. His body was human. He could think and feel and remember. But there was a problem. The crown had been the only thing keeping him alive for all those centuries. Without it, he was over 1,000 years old with nothing to stop time from catching up to him. He was dying. Fast. Simon knew he did not have long. So he made a choice about how to spend his final moments. He called Marceline. He asked her to come to the Ice Kingdom and bring Hambo, the stuffed bear he had given her when she was a child during the Mushroom War. The same Hambo that Marceline had loved and cared for across centuries. Simon needed Hambo because an object that has been loved that deeply for that long contains enough power to open a portal through time. And Simon wanted to use that portal to do one last thing before he died. He wanted to apologize to Betty. Marceline understood what this meant. Hambo would be destroyed in the process. The one physical connection she had to her childhood with Simon would be gone forever. But she also understood that Simon had spent 1,000 years carrying the guilt of driving Betty away. So she gave up Hambo. She sacrificed the most important object she owned so that the man who gave it to her could say goodbye to the woman he loved. The portal opened, and on the other side, Betty appeared. She was in the past, hiding behind a corner, while the crown-possessed Simon of her era rampaged through the streets screaming for her. The future Simon appeared to her through the portal. He was old. He was weak. He was dying. But he was himself. And he told her the truth, that he was calling from 1,000 years in the future, that the crown had taken his mind, that he went crazy, that she ran away, that he never saw her again, and that he was sorry. He told her he loved her. He told her he forgave her for leaving. And then Betty did something no one expected. As the portal began to close, she jumped through it. She leapt 1,000 years into the future to be with Simon. She kissed him. She held him. And then she realized he was dying. The crown's magic was gone, and without it, his body could not survive. So Betty, who had just traveled through time and given up her entire life in the past, immediately went into action. She put Simon on a stolen magic carpet and flew him back to Wizard City to face Bella Noche. Death itself appeared alongside them during the flight, telling Simon that this was his one chance to die as himself, rather than return to being the Ice King. Simon wanted to take that chance. He begged Betty to let him go. He told her he would rather die than go back to being the Ice King. But Betty refused. She told him this was temporary, that restoring the crown's power would buy her time to find a real cure. And Simon trusted her, because he always trusted her. Betty defeated Bella Noche. Magic was restored, the crown's power returned, and Simon vanished. In his place stood the Ice King, confused, clueless, with no memory of what had just happened. He did not remember being Simon. He did not remember the portal. He did not remember Betty holding him on a magic carpet over Wizard City. Betty watched through a window as Ice King stumbled around his castle, babbling about missing a party. And then she flew away on the carpet, alone, in a world 1,000 years removed from everything she had ever known, with nothing but a promise to herself that she would find a way to bring Simon back. And this is where Betty's story becomes something truly painful. Because from this point forward, Betty dedicated every single moment of her life to saving Simon. She studied magic. She studied the crown. She went to Magic Man's house and participated in an experiment that was supposed to help cure Simon, but instead went wrong. In the episode You Forgot Your Floaties, the experiment backfired, and Betty absorbed all of Magic Man's powers, including his madness and his sadness. She became a wizard, but she also started losing her mind. The same kind of obsessive, all-consuming madness that the crown had given Simon was now living inside Betty, twisted by Magic Man's curse into something desperate and unstable. But she kept going. Even as her sanity cracked, she kept trying to save Simon. She kidnapped Gunter and tried to trade him for the crown so she could reprogram it. She put a virus version of herself into the crown's system to try to change it from the inside. She was captured and used as a power source during the Elements Crisis. Every plan failed. Every attempt fell short. And every failure pushed her further and further from the woman she used to be. Betty was becoming something else. Something driven by love, but distorted by madness. She had sacrificed her time period, her career, her sanity, and her sense of self, all for a man who did not even know she was there. And then came the series finale, Come Along With Me. The Great Gum War was about to start. Princess Bubblegum's forces were preparing to face off against Gumbald's army, and in the middle of all of it, Betty made her most desperate move yet. Working with Normal Man, formerly known as Magic Man, Betty summoned GOLB to Ooo. GOLB was a being of pure chaos, a cosmic force so powerful that even Prismo could not undo what it had done. Betty believed that if she could channel Golb's power, she could finally cure Simon once and for all. Normal Man went along with it because Golb had taken someone he loved too, a woman named Margles, and he hoped Golb's summoning might bring her back. But Golb could not be controlled. The moment it arrived, it began tearing Ooh apart. It fused candy people into giant monsters. It destroyed buildings. It attacked everyone. Betty had unleashed the most dangerous force in the universe, and she could not stop it. In the chaos, Betty, Ice King, and Finn were swallowed by Golb. They fell into its stomach. And inside Golby, something happened that no one could have predicted. Golby's digestive process strips things down to their most basic form. It peels away everything that has been added, everything that has been changed, and returns things to what they originally were. And so, inside Golb's stomach, the Ice King was stripped of the crown's influence. Layer by layer, the blue skin faded. The long nose shrank, the white beard disappeared, and standing there, for the first time in 1,000 years, was Simon Petrikov. Not dying this time, not fading away, fully restored, fully himself. And next to him was Betty, also restored. The madness from Magic Man's power was gone. She was herself again, clear-headed, sane, human. And for one perfect, terrible moment, they were just Simon and Betty again. Two people who loved each other, standing together, with nothing between them. But they were inside a monster, and the walls were closing in. Golb was digesting them. They were going to die. Outside, the people of Ooh had discovered that Golb was vulnerable to harmony. BMO had started singing a song called Time Adventure, written by Rebecca Sugar, and the music created a force field that Golby's chaotic creatures could not penetrate. Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, and all of Ooh's defenders joined in. The combined music weakened Golb enough that an opening formed in its body. Simon and Finn could escape, but Betty stayed behind. Because inside Golb, the crown had also been stripped down to its original form. Before it was cursed, before it drove anyone mad. In its original state, the crown had the power to grant one wish to its first wearer, and Betty knew what she had to do. She put the crown on her head. Simon screamed for her to stop. Finn tried to pull Simon out, and Betty made her wish. She did not wish for Golb to disappear. She tried that, but Golb was too powerful. Instead, the crown granted her deepest, truest wish. The wish that had been driving every single thing she had done since she jumped through that portal 1,000 years into the future. She wished for the power to keep Simon safe. The crown granted it. Betty and Golb fused together. They became one being, a new entity, part human, part cosmic force. Betty's consciousness merged with the embodiment of chaos. She became something beyond human, beyond mortal, beyond anything that could ever hold Simon's hand, or hear his voice, or sit across from him at a table and talk about the books they used to write together. She became a god. And as this new being, this fusion of Betty and Golb, rose into the sky, and disappeared through a portal into another dimension, Simon stood on the ground below, watching the woman he loved vanish from existence. He called out her name. Marceline was there to hold him, but Betty was gone. Think about what Betty gave up. She gave up her life in the past. She gave up her sanity. She gave up her humanity. She gave up her physical form. She gave up her future. She gave up everything a person can give up, and then she gave up the one thing that was left, herself. All so that Simon could live. All so that a man who had been trapped inside a madman's body for 1,000 years could finally stand in the sunlight as himself and breathe and think and feel. Betty made that possible, and the cost was that she could never be there to share it with him. In the final montage of Adventure Time, we see Simon beginning a journey to find Betty. We see him visit Prismo, presumably trying to wish her back. But some things cannot be undone. Some sacrifices are permanent. Betty is out there somewhere, fused with a cosmic being, drifting through dimensions, carrying inside her the memory of a man she loved so much that she was willing to stop being a person just to keep him alive. And Simon is an ooh, finally free, finally sane, finally himself, with nothing but a photograph in his wallet and a grief that will never fully go away. The love between Simon and Betty is not a fairy tale. It is not a story where two people overcome the odds and end up together. It is a story about what happens when love becomes so powerful that it destroys the person who feels it. Betty loved Simon so much that she lost herself. And the tragedy is not just that she is gone. The tragedy is that Simon spent 1,000 years as a madman, unaware that the woman he loved was somewhere in the same world, breaking herself apart, trying to save him. They were always reaching for each other, and they were always just a little too far away. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. But Betty's sacrifice was not the only heartbreaking moment in the series finale. Because as GOLB was defeated, and the dust settled, and the people of Ooo looked around at the world they had fought to protect, there was one more goodbye waiting, one more song to be sung, one more montage to watch. And in that montage, Adventure Time said goodbye to everyone, every character, every storyline, every world. And it did it in a way that somehow managed to be the saddest and most beautiful 4 minutes of animation ever put on television. Section 10. Come Along With Me, the goodbye that lasted forever. After everything that happened in the series finale, after GOLB and Betty and Fern and the war and the destruction of the tree fort, there is a quiet moment. The kind of quiet that only comes after something very loud has ended. Finn and Jake are lying in a field of grass near the music hole, a living, singing hole in the ground that can only be heard by people who see the world with a child's sense of wonder, or by those who have experienced great loss. For most of the series, only Finn could hear her. But now, after the tree fort has been destroyed, after Jake watched his home get crushed, after everything they just went through, Jake can hear her too. And that small detail says more than any line of dialogue ever could. Jake has lost enough now to hear the song. The music hole tells Finn and Jake that she has been working on something new. A song about a very specific feeling that is hard to describe. And then she starts to sing. And the song she sings is the Adventure Time ending theme. The same song that is played over the credits of every single episode. The same melody that fans had heard hundreds of times over 10 seasons without ever really thinking about where it came from. And now, in the final minutes of the final episode, the show reveals that this song was always being sung by a character who lives inside the world of Ooo. It was never just a credits song, it was always part of the story. And hearing it now, in this context, after everything we have watched these characters go through, it hits completely different. As the music hole sings, a montage begins. And in that montage, Adventure Time does something that very few shows have ever done this well. It shows you the future. Not the distant future with Shermie and Beth 1,000 years later, the near future. The part that comes right after the adventure is over. The part where people go home and figure out what their lives look like now. We see Jake and Lady Rainicorn exploring different dimensions together. After 10 seasons of Jake being the loyal sidekick, the adventure buddy, the guy who is always there for Finn, we see him finally getting to go on his own journey with the person he loves. We see Lumpy Space Princess being crowned Queen of Lumpy Space. A character who spent the entire series being loud, messy, dramatic, and impossible to deal with, finally getting the recognition and the home she always wanted. We see the Ice Thing, the new form that Gunther took after putting on the crown and wishing to be like Ice King, getting married to Turtle Princess. A wedding between two of the strangest, most unlikely characters in the show, and somehow it feels exactly right. We see TV, one of Jake's pups, becoming a private detective. We see Sweet Pea, the reborn form of the Lich, the most evil being in Adventure Time's history, graduating from school with Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig cheering him on from the audience. A monster turned into a child, turned into a young man with a future. We see Princess Bubblegum and Aunt Lolly working together to take care of Nettie, Bubblegum's brother, showing that the Gum War really is over and that some bridges can be rebuilt. We see Flame Princess and NEPTR becoming a musical duo, two characters who barely interacted during the series, now finding friendship in the strangest pairing. We see Crabbit Familiar, a tiny creature from a single episode who once mentioned wanting to be a dancer, now performing on a stage. The show remembered a throwaway line from seasons ago and gave that character its dream. We see Marceline and Princess Bubblegum together, not fighting, not arguing, not navigating the complicated history that defined their relationship for years, just sitting on a couch, together, happy. Two people who spent centuries hurting each other and missing each other and being too proud to admit what they felt, finally just being together in the simplest, most ordinary way possible. And we see BMO launching a rocket carrying the memory drive of Mo, his creator, into space, fulfilling Mo's dying wish from seasons earlier. Every character, no matter how small, gets a moment. Every storyline, no matter how minor, gets a resolution. And then we see Simon, alone, visiting Prismo, the Wishmaster who lives inside a time room at the center of the multiverse. Simon is there because he wants to wish Betty back. He wants to undo her sacrifice. He wants the woman he loves to be a person again, not a cosmic being fused with a chaos god, drifting through dimensions. But Prismo cannot do it. Galb is beyond even Prismo's power. The wish fails. And Simon is left standing in a room with all the power in the universe available to him, and no way to get back the one thing he wants. He is devastated. And the montage keeps going, because the world does not stop for grief. Other people's happy endings continue even while Simon's heart is breaking. And then, in the final frames of the montage, we see something that ties the entire series together. The humans arrive. A boat comes across the ocean, and on it are the last surviving humans from the islands, including Minerva, Finn's mother, projected on a large screen. They have finally left the islands. They have finally come to Oo. And Finn and Jake spot them and wave. It is not a big dramatic moment. There are no tears or speeches, just a boy and his dog standing on a hill, waving at a boat full of people who look like them. Finn is no longer the last human in Oo. The thing that made him special, the thing that made him lonely, the thing that defined his entire identity for 10 seasons is no longer true, and he does not seem sad about it. He seems relieved. The music hall's song ends, the montage fades, and we return to the future 1,000 years later, where Beth and Shermie have listened to BMO's entire story. They leave BMO's mountain home and travel to the massive tree that grew from Fern's seedling, the tree that stands where the tree fort used to be. Shermie climbs to the top and pulls the Finn sword from its branches. And in the very last shot of Adventure Time, Shermie and Beth stand together, holding the sword high, striking the exact same pose that Finn and Jake struck in the opening title sequence of every episode. The same pose, the same energy, the same adventure, just new people. It is the most perfect ending a show like this could have. Because Adventure Time was never really about Finn and Jake. It was about the idea that stories continue, that people come and go, that the world keeps spinning even after the heroes put down their swords, that sadness and joy are not opposites but partners, sitting side by side in every moment, in every memory, in every song that a hole in the ground sings to two boys lying in the grass after the hardest day of their lives. The show began with a boy and a dog going on an adventure, and it ended with a boy and a dog lying still, listening to music, letting the world be quiet for just a moment before the next adventure begins. And that is why this montage, these final 4 minutes, might be the saddest thing Adventure Time ever did. Not because anything terrible happens, but because it is over. Because you realize, as the music hole sings and the characters move on with their lives, that you are saying goodbye too. Not just to Finn and Jake, but to every single person in this world who made you laugh or cry or think about something you had never thought about before. The montage does not end with a cliffhanger or a mystery or a promise of more to come. It ends with the understanding that this is it. This is where the story stops, and everything after this happens without you. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. I have another deep dive coming soon that I think you're really going to love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.